Hello, everybody. Welcome to Raising Vibrations. You're with Simon today. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at the new moon in Scorpio. And this is going to be happening on the 28th of October, 2019. For me personally, I am really looking forward to sharing with you my reflections of this new moon. A huge part of it is because tomorrow, the 26th, is my solar return birthday. And so a lot of this new moon energy speaks to the deepest chasms of my own soul. And so, so much of what is my message today, so much of what it is that it means to, speak to you, the collective, in terms of purpose and meaning and experiencing myself in a deeper way. All of this is really held in the new moon in Scorpio and the message that is here. And it's pretty amazing to, be able to have a transit or many transits, of course, many planets making activations to my personal chart that really reveal to me for my own self what is purpose and meaning and inspiration for me. And this new moon really kind of like speaks to that. It's like my personal ability to go, this is the subtle but yet very vibrant color of my frequency of my divine essence in that way. So hopefully I can excite you and bring you to a deeper calling within yourself, because this definitely is the new moon that's going to ignite this. So I love this picture so much because it speaks to the essence of Egypt. It speaks to the essence of that civilization. The Egyptians were deeply fascinated with the cycle of life and death. They, spent a great deal of time trying to understand the nature of, what was reincarnation. You can see by the history that we, seem to understand about them, that we've explored about them, that they had a fascination with, preserving people for the idea of the afterlife. And, at the end of the day, whatever it is that they were trying to make sense of as a civilization, one of the things that speaks deeply to me in understanding, what they represented and how they looked at life and, what was the essence of their core inner truth as a civilization, it awakens with inside of myself this, not only my own personal DNA, but it awakens this relationship to life beyond the physical. And so what do I mean by that? I mean in the sense that, for most of us, we live in a world where our personalities or our ego structures, which are, very limited to just our senses and the way that we perceive this physical world and our impressions that we have of it, all of these begin to solidify a personality or a persona, like Jung used to call it. And these sort of ego structures or personality structures interact with life in a very finite way. It's like, this is my life right now. And so we define our age through this relationship to, Chronos, Saturn. And so we have our chronological time, and, that's our biological vehicle and how that operates. But one of the things that we seem to not necessarily as a human race in our current exploration acknowledge the eternity, the dynamic of eternity as a experience that is simultaneously being held with this finite or chronological experience that is our human condition. And it's not to say that we don't recognize it as a truth on some level. It's definitely becoming sort of more emergent in our consciousness at the time that we know on some level that, we would define it as time and as an illusion, as an example, and we would sense and feel that beyond the realms of our limitations. There must be something occurring, and that if we try to look at it through our physical senses and use our minds to try and access that place, we're limited. And so, it's completely natural for us to not necessarily give a lot of attention to this outer reality. And I suppose on one level you could, argue the point that what does it matter? And I would say that it matters greatly, because for most of our time that we as a human race have been sort of exploring our nature and our perception of reality as it is, that finiteness has, manifested an intense void within the collective culture. And this void in itself, this disconnect, presents itself through a feeling of emptiness, a feeling of, not really knowing what bliss is, or knowing what meaning is, or searching for. And this is the key here to the message today, searching for meaning. And when you look at human design, for instance, which is where Jupiter is going to be transiting very soon, you look at the 11, gate 11, the hexagram 11, and it is the abstract part of us that is in a constant search for life. And so we're always psychologically and emotionally working through a filter of reality that is trying to search for the meaning of existence. And one of the things that is absolutely essential for us right now as a human race is the realization that this pattern of existential search for meaning will no longer render anything other than complete emptiness, and that we're hyper aware of this process. And one of the things that is very apparent, through my own lens as I observe it and what I've gone through myself personally, is that when we go to school and we go through the what we've defined and valued as the institutions that would give us an ability to orientate ourselves in life and reality, we were never taught about the soul. We were never taught about what does it mean to cultivate emotional understanding as a doorway to the inner realms of our own self. And so, naturally speaking, the essence of mortality and immortality and the dynamic that the Egyptians were, as a civilization really tapping into to make sense of, is lost. And so we're, bound by the physical limitations of our own senses. And in that place, the only thing that we can truly hold as meaningful is reoccurring patterns of stimuli that are, in a sense, releasing chemicals in our brain, like, for instance, dopamine. And so what we have within our lives is a structured reality that feeds itself and nourishes itself on reoccurring patterns of stimuli that, like through sugar, for instance, through consistent hits of risk-taking to feel alive, as an example. All of these types of patterns, trying to go on some spiritual sort of quest and finding meaning in there, or connecting to it, then coming back to your life and then trying to integrate that meaning back into your life, and realizing the separation between the way that life is actually operating through us and the way that our personalities or personas have been formed based on these collective truths that we subscribe to, that are essentially outdated and have run their course. So the essence of today's conversation is to tap into the potential for awakening an experience of life, a perception of life, a invitation of life, where we're no longer subscribing to these stimuli that reinforce a consistent pattern of meaning that only lasts momentarily, So we search for meaning through the purchase of a new car, for instance. And then once we've purchased the car, the separating desire is done. And we feel like now we just have, 12 months of paying a certain debt to a place that's leased it out for us, so that we can have the sense of validation and meaning through the social structures and the values that are, ascribed to those social structures that are ultimately rooted in something that's very disconnecting. And so we don't know the eternity of our soul. We don't know the multidimensionality of our essence. And through that, of course, what naturally manifests is a breeding ground for limited perception of truth beyond what's really right now for us here. And so this conversation today is a sparking into an exploration, a deep dive, a commitment, a meeting yourself head on and asking yourself the question, what am I eternally? And what am I beyond my fears? What am I beyond my psychological barriers and limitations and the personas that I subscribe to and the beliefs I hold about myself that don't allow me to see beyond this life? And that everything that is manifesting in my reality and the perception of myself that is manifesting in this reality is, in a sense, coming from a place that's even beyond. And when I get into touching with that place, when I get into contact with that place, will I realize the inner cosmos of my own divine being. And in a sense, that's what we're really here for. You know, it's to awaken to the cycle of life and death as a process of multiple life and death cycles and the reincarnation. And that's why when you look at, say, for instance, the symbolism of, that comes out of Egypt, you've got the Ankh, right? Or the Ankh. And it's this grounding tool that reminds us of the womb of life and the polarities of life and death, or rising and descending. And it's profound, because when we get into this and we understand these deeper cosmological principles of our existence, we tap into the potential of immortality, not as a physical like modality, but more as something in which your essence is immortal, and that the process of your physical form is holding a consistent reemergence of the immortality, right? Okay, so let's have a look at the chart, right? Let's have a look at the current energy at the moment. And for those of you that are into human design, you can see that the sun is 4 degrees Scorpio, and the moon's at 4 degrees Scorpio. And like I said, for those of you that are into human design, the sun is in gate 28 and the earth is in gate 27, which is in Taurus there, right? And actually, when this new moon takes place, Pluto will move into the gate 61, which is hexagram of inner truth. And so this is what we have here, guys. We have the symbolic representation of these symbols, where there's an emergent essence, there's an emergent rising pulse that wants to, and is, and has been coming through us very deeply, through Saturn conjunct Pluto. And it wants to break and shatter these personas, these personalities, these limitations that we've at once were the things that held us together, that held us in an exploration of who we are, but now are limiting. They are no longer supportive. They are no longer bringing us the next phase of our collective awareness. And so for each of us, this new moon in 4 degrees Scorpio, this is all landing on my natal Saturn, by the way, and on my sun sign, it all speaks to the process of breaking down the psychological barriers of fear. And so the psychological barriers of fear are held in Capricorn, right? Capricorn wants to keep things structured, so to protect us from what is outside of the realms. And yet that protection, as much as it is something that is essential for the early parts of our youthful self-development, it becomes limiting to us. And this is the process of age. This is the process of maturation and individuation. So the Scorpio part of it here, the sun-moon contact, speaks to a necessary transformation, like going into the underworld. And the way that we go into the underworld is we're tempted into a psychological state of empowerment. It's like I yearn for something deeper, powerful, more livening. And this is what the 28 is in the I Ching. It's the part of fear of death. And for my whole entire life, I lived psychologically and emotionally fearing doing things outside my comfort zone or radical, because I didn't want to die. And that's the thing here. It's the fear of dying without a purpose. And the irony of it is that all of us on some level will find purpose in anything. And the thing about finding purpose in anything is that we've got to observe if that purpose is really driven out of fear. And then when we're driving, if we're driven out of fear, our purpose is defined from that, and we never actually truly get to know what's beyond the surface. And that's something that this new moon really wants to confront in all of us. It wants to speak to the depths of our inner chasms. It wants to open up the realm that is Hades, right? It wants to explore us there. It wants to point out there. And Mercury, as we know, is about to go retrograde. And it's sitting here. I didn't actually put it in the charts though, but it's sitting here, right? Right there. And it's communicating to us that there's a message in the underworld that we want to have. And we're going to explore that through its retrograde cycle. And Venus sitting there as well speaks to the relationship to our inner and outer world, and the commitments that we've had to these outer beliefs and the attachments that we've had. And then also the transmutation of them, the confronting of those limitations. You know, what I like so much about the inconjunct between the sun and the moon. So there's the sun and the moon in Scorpio, and there's Chiron sitting at 2 degrees retrograde in Aries. There's the inconjunct, by the way. It's the green line. The inconjunct between Scorpio and Aries psychologically is we need to be able to realize that if we're going to transform, if we're going to find meaning in our lives, we have to break away from the things that make us feel safe. And I don't mean, for instance, just now, all of a sudden to feel life, you need to go into the sort of most dangerous parts of a city and run around with wads of cash on your head saying, oh, I'm living life because I'm outside my comfort zone. This is not what I'm suggesting. And that would actually be something that would be considered the shadow aspect of Gate 28 or the shadow aspect of Scorpio. It's to push the boundaries even to the point where it's life and death for risks to feel alive. And that's the thing here. We need to all see that these personas, these personalities, these experiences, these comfort zones give us a sense of familiarity, but they don't stimulate within ourselves or stir up within inside of ourselves our own limitations, our own unconscious. They don't bring to the surface the things that can challenge us to make us stronger. And so I encourage every single one of you right now that's listening to this video to observe within your life things you've been putting off, that you know that if you challenged yourself in that area, you would become stronger. You'd become more awake, more alive, more assertive, and more connected to your deeper self. And that when you meet the sort of process within you that is calling out the essence of your life beyond the personalities and the ego's sense of, comfort, that's when you're going to meet your true self. That's when you're going to meet your inner Godhead. That's when you're going to meet the thing that awakens you, And so here I've got this cool thing from Cool Young where it says, we cannot go beyond ourselves, but only deeper into ourselves. And this self is not identical with the ego, because in this self, we appear wonderfully strange to ourselves. And I love this image so much about the Fibonacci. You can see the feminine so much present in this archetype of the Fibonacci. And yet at the same time, this is the image of the shell. And then it's the flame. It's like, how do we engulf our life with purpose and meaning and experience? How do we ignite it? And the only way to do that is to be able to go deeper into ourselves. And the only way we can go deeper into ourselves is if we challenge the things that prevent us from actually experiencing that, which is the fears, it's the barriers. So all of these squares that you see are between Mars in Libra at 15 degrees in the South Node and Saturn, Saturn being 15 degrees Capricorn and Mars being 15 degrees, that's an exact square. And it's dealing with the expectations, it's dealing with the responsibilities, it's dealing with all of these roles that we've played socially and how they don't give us the essence of our meaning. And so there you have Neptune at 16 degrees Pisces, and it just speaks to a dissolving of this and the decay of these outmoded selves that no longer are rooting for our direction, but merely carcasses of our older selves that no longer represent the truth of who we are, And so my favorite part of this whole entire video is the process of the mythology of, Persephone and Hades. And one of the things that I love so much about this picture, as I searched for many of them, was the flower arrangement, and the stairs. And what I like about the stairs over here, to me, as I extract from this symbolism, this picture, is that there is always a journey between the underworld and the ego self. And we always journey consistently up and down the stairs. We journey up the stairs to come back to the self, the persona, and we integrate within that persona all of the things that we have discovered in the deeper parts of ourselves. And once we have established this strong sense of persona that's rooting depth into us, we travel into our subconscious again. We travel into the Hades layer, and we meet our fears. We meet the Cerberus, right? The three-headed dog that guards the underworld. And we meet that, which is a fear. It's an unconscious fear. It's a pattern of rejection. It's a pattern of what happens if this person laughs at me, or I don't want to take that job because what happens if I'm not the right person for it, or I have social this, all of these fears that hold us back from really knowing the essence of our true being. And so Persephone, when she, becomes the soul, with Hades, she becomes the queen of the underworld. And so you have these two polarities within our subconscious that descends and ascends, and descends and ascends. And the purpose in this imagery here with the flowers particularly is how the seasons, the natural world reflects these cycles. So here in the northern hemisphere, the sun's moved in Scorpio, as we know. Scorpio season is here, and Halloween starts to descend upon our world. And you can see immediately how we're entering the part of the world where the depths and the underworld exist, right? So the world starts to look less like light. And yet in the southern hemisphere, the light is shining. And so Persephone is ascending into the southern hemisphere where, her mother Ceres provides the land full of bounty, full of nurture and care. And while here in the northern hemisphere, the land decays and becomes barren, right? And yet when we have summer here in the northern hemisphere, Persephone comes back to the surface to spend time with her mother. And so we have bounty and beauty here. And yet the southern hemisphere experiences the underworld, and this is such a profound explanation of this tipping and this relationship between how we are consistently finding meaning and purpose through traversing the worlds, and that every single time we traverse into the underworld, we have to let go of something that once provided life to us, but now is lifeless. And that's what the souls represent, right? And yet at the same time, as we surrender this false self, we also are giving birth to something that is going to give us life again, and that's what's so profound about this. And, my own personal story, this is who I am. It's like everything that I do here, everything that I share here manifests from this core sense of wanting to share with people that this is my message, right? Share with people that our life has more depth to it than we see. And that when we're blinded to it through the ego's perceptions and our fears, we never actually get to fully live the essence of our true being. And right now, there is a time for us to all understand that energetically, astrologically, in human design, all of the symbols are pointing to the awakening of this process. Okay. All right, my friends. I hope that this video sort of inspired you and ignited you in some way. I'd like to take this opportunity to speak to you about something that myself and Jen have been putting together for the last couple of weeks. And this is called Metamorphosis 2020. And this is a program that we're putting together, or we have put together. It's available now. You can go and find out more about what it is through clicking in the links in the description and also in the comments below. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about this to see if this is something that sparks interest in you so that you can go and explore more about it on our website. The Metamorphosis process speaks to the essence of my own frequency. And I've been doing this metamorphosis since 2015. And this is the first time that in myself, I've really been able to embody what I've just spoken about in this video. So everything that I've spoken to you about in this video has become something that is held and captivated in Metamorphosis 2020. And it's that I would like to take the opportunity to travel with those who are seeking to spend a year with me to literally go through a metamorphosis of your own psychological and emotional being, to confront all of the psychological fears that you have, and to really step into the truth of who you are. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to take your astrology chart and we're going to go through all of the archetypes that are in your astrology charts, and we're going to work through every single one of these aspects in your charts. We're going to start with the sun and Pluto, and we're going to look at your soul's purpose. We're going to look at why Jupiter is there, all of the planets, all of the archetypes. And we're going to spend time each month on each archetype getting to the core of your essence, so that when you walk away from this conversation 1 year later, everything that is your nature will be completely metamorphosized. And I'm so excited about this because the very essence of this journey had to happen in me first. And I didn't want to do this initially because I had a lot of fears around certain things. And as I kind of walked through those fears and broke them down, I realized that now in my life, I've got the structure in place. I've got the excitement. I've got the purpose. I've got everything that ignites me to feel like this is how I want to spend 2020. Really, really tapping into the potential that is available astrologically and, through human design and stuff, what is available to us. And so for any of you that are feeling this call to truly understand the depth of your own self, and by no means this is going to be something like, just an easy process. It's going to be incredibly transformative. And if you feel this call towards this, in the description below are some links to our website in which you can go and read about what it is that we're going to be doing to see if this is something that you really want. Okay. All right, my friends. Thanks very much for listening. Have a wonderful new moon, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.